All right, so have you ever wondered what would happen if you, like, plucked a Roman gladiator out of the Colosseum and, like, dropped them right into the middle of ancient China?
Yeah, and not just for a visit, right?
No, not just for a visit. We're talking full-on battle mode, like against the entire Chinese army.
Okay, so that's definitely a listener question.
Oh, yeah, big time. Someone out there is really curious about this clash of civilizations, and you know what? It's actually a pretty fascinating question.
It is. It is. You got two of the just absolute powerhouses of the ancient world, each with totally different military traditions, weapons, the whole shebang.
Right. Like, how would a gladiator, who's basically a one-man army, stack up against a force that's, well, an actual army? Like hundreds of thousands strong.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, it's like almost a David and Goliath situation, but on a way, way bigger scale.
So let's dive into this.
Yeah.
First off, we got to picture our gladiator, right? What kind of warrior are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, think about those classic images, right? A warrior bred for combat, skilled with a variety of weapons. We're talking peak physical condition, strength, endurance, the whole package.
Yeah. Like, these guys were basically the ultimate fighting machines of their time. They trained their entire lives for this.
True, but, and it's a big but, we can't like totally romanticize the gladiator thing. I mean, their life was brutal. The training was incredibly harsh. And let's be real, their lifespan was not exactly what you'd call lengthy.
Okay, fair point. So maybe not invincible super soldiers, but still.
Oh.
A Retiarius with a net and trident going up against, I don't know, a heavily armored Murmillo, that would have been wild.
Oh, absolutely. The type of gladiator would definitely influence their chances. Like a Retiarius is built for one-on-one combat, not exactly taking on a wave of infantry.
Right, good point. But no matter what kind of gladiator we're imagining, they're still going up against the might of ancient China's army, and that's just, I mean, the scale of it is mind-blowing.
It really is. Ancient China's armies were just massive. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of soldiers, highly disciplined formations. Their military strategies were refined over centuries of warfare. They were not messing around.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Just like a sea of soldiers coming at you, the ground shaking, you hear the drums, the clash of weapons, and then boom.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the visual. Like, if you need a mental image, just think of the terracotta army.
Oh yeah, good point. Thousands upon thousands of life-size warriors, all in formation. It's a pretty good indicator of just how seriously the ancient Chinese took their military.
For sure. And we're not even just talking about brute force numbers here. The Chinese army was incredibly diverse in terms of its units. You had archers, cavalry, infantry, guys armed with spears, swords, maybe even some early gunpowder weapons, depending on the time period.
Okay, so we've got a pretty clear picture of the challenge here. It's like our lone gladiator versus a well-oiled military machine. So where do we even begin to break this down? What are the key factors that would determine how this plays out?
I think one of the most obvious things to consider is just the clash of styles here. You've got the gladiator, the master of individual combat, versus the Chinese army, which was all about discipline and fighting as a unit, like one giant organism.
Right, so it's not just about how strong or skilled the gladiator is, but how they would adapt to fighting a whole army instead of just one opponent in the arena.
Exactly. And let's be realistic, even the greatest warrior would struggle against those kinds of odds. It's just, there's only so much one person can do, no matter how skilled or strong.
I mean, it would be like trying to fight off a tidal wave with a sword.
Right.
Right, no matter how good your swordsmanship is, you're going to get overwhelmed eventually.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. But you know, that said, the gladiator wouldn't be totally defenseless. Roman weaponry was actually pretty advanced for its time. I mean, their steel was significantly stronger and more flexible than the bronze that was commonly used in ancient China.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember learning about that.
Yeah.
Something about the higher carbon content in Roman steel, right?
Yep, that's it. And that could have given the gladiator a real edge in one-on-one combat, especially against swords and armor. Imagine a Roman gladius going up against a Chinese bronze sword. It's not even a fair fight.
So the gladiator might be able to, I don't know, cut through some of the early waves of attackers, but that's only if they can get close enough, right? I mean, wouldn't the Chinese army just shower them with arrows from a distance?
Oh, for sure. That's one of the biggest challenges the gladiator would face, just the sheer volume of projectiles. And it's not just arrows, we're talking javelins, maybe even slings. And remember, they're not just standing there throwing things randomly. The Chinese army was known for its disciplined formations and coordinated attacks.
Okay, so dodging a few arrows is one thing, but dodging like a whole volley of them, that's a different story. What about Roman tactics? Could those come into play here?
It's an interesting question. Roman legions were famous for their discipline, their formations, like the testudo, that shield wall they used to protect themselves from projectiles.
Yeah, the testudo. Couldn't our gladiator maybe use that to, like, at least buy some time?
Possibly, yeah. A testudo formation could offer some protection against arrows and stuff, but it's not foolproof. The Chinese army wasn't just going to stand there and watch. They were masters of flanking maneuvers. They could use their cavalry to try and break up the formation. And crucially, they had something the Romans didn't: gunpowder.
Oh man, that's right. I almost forgot about gunpowder. We can't discount that. That totally changes the game.
Absolutely. Even in its early forms, gunpowder was a game changer.
What exactly are we talking about here? Like, would our gladiator be facing cannons and muskets?
Not quite that advanced. Think more along the lines of fire arrows, early grenades, maybe even some rudimentary rocket-powered projectiles.
Okay, so not full-on cannons, but still, that's pretty terrifying. I mean, imagine facing a barrage of fire arrows or having a proto-grenade land at your feet.
Exactly, it would be absolutely devastating. And even if the gladiator somehow survived the initial blasts, think about the psychological impact, just the sound and fury of those weapons, the chaos and confusion.
Yeah, you're right. That would be enough to break anyone's spirit, no matter how tough they were. So it's starting to sound like our gladiator is facing some pretty insurmountable odds here.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the odds are definitely stacked against them. But, you know, there's always that human element to consider, right? The unpredictable nature of warfare.
Right, like even against all odds, couldn't the gladiator's ferocity, their sheer willpower, maybe even inspire some fear in the Chinese ranks?
It's definitely possible. Imagine you're a Chinese soldier, you've never seen anything like a Roman gladiator before, this warrior who fights with incredible skill, seemingly without fear, taking on wave after wave of your comrades. That could have a psychological impact, no doubt.
Yeah, that's a good point. And who knows, maybe that fear, that uncertainty could lead to some hesitation, some mistakes, and in the chaos of battle, even a small mistake can have huge consequences.
Exactly. History is full of examples of smaller forces achieving victory through sheer audacity and the element of surprise. It's not impossible.
So maybe, just maybe, if our gladiator could combine their superior weaponry, some clever tactics, and a whole lot of luck, they could pull off a truly legendary upset. It would be the ultimate underdog story.
It would be. But even if our gladiator doesn't single-handedly conquer the entire Chinese army, this whole thought experiment is really fascinating, don't you think?
Oh, totally. It makes you think about the incredible diversity of ancient warfare, the different strengths and weaknesses of various military technologies and strategies. I mean, it's kind of humbling, right, to realize that there were these incredibly powerful empires on opposite sides of the world, each with their own unique way of waging war.
Exactly. And it shows that, human ingenuity, human courage, it can find a way, even in the most seemingly impossible situations. And sometimes that's all you need to change the course of history. Just a little bit of ingenuity and a whole lot of luck.
Well, on that note, we're going to have to leave it there for today. But, we've only scratched the surface of this topic. I mean, we could spend hours talking about the specifics of Roman and Chinese military history.
We totally could. And there's so much more to explore. The different types of gladiators, the evolution of Chinese weaponry, the tactics, the philosophies behind their military strategies.
So much to dive into. But for now, we'll leave you with this thought. Go do some research. Learn more about these fascinating ancient civilizations, and maybe, just maybe, you'll come up with your own theory on how this epic battle might have played out.
Yeah, and who knows, you might even discover something new, something that changes the way we think about history. That's the beauty of it, right? There's always more to learn.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Happy deep diving!